This is possibly one of the craziest shoes that I've ever seen, but is the geometry just a gimmick or is there something to it? Let's break down the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod. You're watching Rad Dad Bod TV where we review running shoes. Now today we're going to be talking about the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Before I go into any details, I already know you're going to the comment section right now and you're gonna say, Eric, that's not how you pronounce Mizuno. Actually, it is. Mizuno is a Japanese last name, and that is the Japanese pronunciation. I am half Japanese, lived there for about 10 years, so I'm not going to tell you that Mizuno is wrong because it's the Americanized version. However, actually how you pronounce it in its native tongue. Now, if it's one of your first videos, you may notice the timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full video as I put a lot of time and effort into these. And if you like what you see, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you haven't already hit that notification button, do so now because I release videos pretty much every day right now, but traditionally I try to release them on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Now, just to start us out, we're gonna go over some disclaimers and disclosures, which are that I was provided the shoe directly from Mizuno. They sent it to me for the purpose of review, but I was not paid, was not given a script, talking points, anything. No one watches my videos beforehand. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of the shoe. The Wave Rebellion Pro 3 is a super shoe and is designed for marathon racing. It is Mizuno's premier racing shoe and is designed again to go the distance and to go about it very, very fast. It's not built for daily miles, not built for daily runs. However, you can use it for speed workouts, tempo runs, and marathon specific pace workouts in your training. And that is how we're going to be evaluating this shoe today. Now from a price perspective, the shoe comes in at $250, which is pretty normal, and if anything, it's kind of on the lower end, to be honest, of super shoe pricing nowadays, as a lot of premium and premier options are being pushed more towards that $300 range. From a specs perspective, the shoe comes in at 7.7 ounces as well as 218 grams, so it is a lightweight shoe, and honestly nowadays that's kind of actually starting to get on the slightly heavier side of super shoes, but for the most part I would say that the weight is not a huge factor in the shoe, at least in my experience. And then from a stack height perspective, technically it's 61 in the heel, 57 in the forefoot for a 4mm heel to toe drop, but the reason for this crazy cutout in the midsole is so that you can measure from a lower point. So at this lower point, it's going to be 40 or under millimeters, which allows it to be World Athletics legal, so professional athletes can run the marathon in it, because anything above 40 millimeters with the super foam and carbon fiber plate, all those things, is going to be considered illegal for professional use. Now from a fit perspective, the shoe fits true to size lengthwise, and then the fit throughout, I would say that the toe box is average to roomy. I would say the heel is average to roomy, but then that midfoot is a little bit snug, a little bit narrow. I don't think you should size up or size down in the shoe. We'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second with the upper, but for the most part, true to size should fit just right with this model. Now moving to that upper, we have an engineered mesh with some reinforcements and light cushioning, specifically in the heel area right there in the heel counter. But for the most part, you do have a structured heel, but it's gonna be this nice, lightweight, breathable mesh throughout. Personally, I do like this upper quite a bit. It's really, really nice. I like that it breathes. I like that it's lightweight, and I find that I can get some really good lockdown in it. I did, however, because of the aggressiveness of the shoe, use a runner's knot when running in the shoe. And one thing with that is the tongue is short and not fully gusseted, although the laces do weave through it in multiple places. And so with the runner's knot, the laces do come up quite high and may give you a little bit of lace bite, especially because the tongue is just that thin kind of piece of fabric, just very, very minimal to save weight overall. Now, although the upper, in my opinion, is nice and the fit is true to size, I did experience a little bit of blistering on my right toe, as well as a little bit of what I felt like shifting forward in the shoe, just as I picked the paces and covered more distance, which caused a little bit of discomfort in the toes. And again, I do think that that's mainly because of the aggressive nature of the shoe, has less to do with the upper, but I would like to see if we got a little bit longer tongue in future iterations, if that would kind of help, and if it was fully gusseted, just to give us a little bit better lockdown, although I didn't feel overall that I shifted too much in the shoes, but again, my toes are maybe saying a different story. All in all though, the upper does feel pretty premium and I like the materials that are used, and I think that the cushioning and the structure gives you just the right amount of lightweight and minimal while giving you the structure that you need to feel good in the shoe. Moving to the midsole, aside from the geometry, first let's talk about the foam. It is Mizuno Energy XP, which all I could find is that it is a supercritical foam. If I had to guess, I think I heard them say that it is a supercritical TPEE foam when I met with them at the running event. And that wouldn't surprise me because a lot of running brands are moving to TPEE foams. But I will say that if this is TPEE and it's not PIBA, that it feels more structured or more firm compared to other TPE based shoes that I have felt. Specifically like the Endorphin Elite 2 as well as the Adios Pro 4 are both TPEE, and the foams are very, very squishy, but then they firm up when you run. This foam itself, it is soft, and it is very, very responsive, very, very fast, but it isn't mushy like a couple of those other shoes, or you don't get that like super, super soft squish. I feel like the shoe has a good balance of soft yet supportive structure overall. The other thing that this shoe does have is the wave plate, a carbon fiber plate that runs throughout the shoe to give you that rigidity, that snap, that pop, as well as to give that foam structure. Now, obviously, this shoe has a very unique geometry, and it is not for heel strikers. I am a midfoot striker, but when I fatigue or go on longer efforts, sometimes I do fall back on my heels a little bit. And I have found that extended efforts in this shoe really, really beat up my lower limbs. My calves and my Achilles really take a beating. But if I'm doing things like 200, 400s, or intervals just in general with rest in between, then I really, really enjoy this shoe, and it really makes almost any pace effortless. So I took this most recently out. I believe it was a pyramid workout where we hit 2, 4, half, 3/4 mile, and then back down. And this shoe felt super comfortable at every point, and we just rested in between. But when I tried to do kind of an over under in and out threshold workout in this shoe, where I was running for about 8 straight miles at varying paces, that's where I really, really felt the fatigue set in with this shoe in particular. Now again, pace versatility wise, like this isn't meant to go slow. This is a shoe that is meant to go fast and only fast, and it's not like some other super shoes where you can maybe stretch the use. This is very much a shoe that if you are running fast, whatever fast may mean for you, that's where you want to be using this one. For me, I think the max distance that I could race in it, just because my body can only tolerate the aggressiveness of it for that long, it would probably be 5K, maybe 10K. I don't believe I could race a half or full in this shoe. I really like the foam though, and if it weren't for the hyper aggressive geometry, and if we had kind of a lower stack, or not necessarily lower stack, but less aggressive, less cut out style in that outsole, something more similar to the Wave Rebellion Flash, I think I would really, really enjoy it for that half marathon and marathon distance. This is one of my favorite feeling foams overall that I've worn in a super shoe. I think this should probably go without saying, but this is not a stable shoe. So if you're looking for a stable option, then this is not the shoe that you should be running your race in. Now moving to the outsole, we have a G3 compound and kind of a banded rubber style. I really, really like this outsole. I think it's very, very, very grippy, and you get full coverage, which is awesome. So full coverage in a super shoe is always going to be great, but that lattice somewhat pattern, or that webbed or banded pattern, allows them to shed weight as they're able to get the full coverage, but still kind of have that exposed midsole foam underneath. I find that this outsole does really, really well because of the instability of the shoe and because of the aggressiveness of the shoe. It's not a shoe that I necessarily want to wear in like treacherous terrain or anything like that. Like if there was snow on the ground, I wouldn't be taking this shoe out, but running on wet roads, running in rain, I had no issues. In fact, I found that the rubber held up really, really well. And as far as durability goes, we are getting a little bit of wear on kind of that lateral side of the shoe, but all in all, it's holding up really, really well. And we have, I believe, 30 to 35 miles or so on this shoe. Now, as far as who's the shoe for, I mean, the shoe is for really, like, if we're looking for the marathon usage, the shoe is for someone who is a 4-foot striker realistically, and it's probably for someone who's a 4-foot striker and a sub 3-hour marathoner. The shoe is very aggressive. The shoe is very fast. And again, it's not that someone who isn't a 4-foot striker or isn't a sub 3-hour marathoner couldn't wear the shoe, because they definitely could. And different shoes, different feet, different strides, different people, for sure, right? I know of a few people who are definitely not sub 3 who really enjoy running in this shoe for distance. But I think the large majority just are not going to have the specific mechanics that are going to be required for the shoe to feel comfortable at that distance. Now, here's kind of the caveat though. I really like running in the shoe. And I really, really like it, again, for those shorter intervals. Now, $250 is a steep price tag, but eventually it will go on sale. And if you're looking at it and you're watching this video, once the shoe has been on sale, then it might be a really nice pickup for kind of your speed workouts and your shorter races. So I do think that most runners can find a place in the rotation for the shoe. I just don't think that most runners are going to be able to tolerate what this shoe requires from their lower limbs in order for it to be kind of worth it at the distance. But all in all, I think it's a really, really nice shoe. Obviously, a couple of things that they need to fix, including the tongue. There's some fine tuning that needs to go into the upper, I think, in order to really make this a little bit more accessible. But I really, really enjoyed the miles, and I look forward to putting on some more and also seeing what kind of updates are going to come from the shoe in future years. Just some final thoughts. Mizuno has kind of won me over, if I'm being honest, over the course of like the last, we'll call it like 6 months. The first shoe, like legitimately the first shoe that I ran in from them was the Wave Rebellion Pro 2, which I wasn't super sure about. I saw the appeal, but similar to the 3, I didn't think it was really going to work for me. And then the next shoe I tried was the Neo Vista, which everyone loved. And for me, it just, the instability of it, and I didn't feel like it had like the top end pop. So I had kind of started to write Mizuno off, if I'm being completely honest. But being from Japan and having lived there for 10 years, I have a soft spot in my heart for Japanese brands, so I was really rooting for them. And honestly, the last few releases that I have tried from them have kind of blown me out of the water. First up, the Neo Zen. That is one of my favorite shoes, maybe my favorite shoe of 2025. Like, it's gonna be really, really hard to beat. It's just responsive, it's bouncy, it's fun. It's just like a really, like one of the shoes that brings a lot of joy in running to me, which, you know, again, I was a little skeptical with the knit upper with my experience with the Neo Vista, but it just blew me out of the water. Next, the Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Again, a little bit skeptical because the 2 just didn't quite work for me, but this foam is something special. They really have something in here. And again, I know that in Asia, they've released a low version or a different geometry, but same foam. And I believe that's coming out in the US in maybe in the middle of the year or the fall, and I just am really excited to be able to try that because I think that that could really vibe with my foot. Because the third shoe, the Wave Rebellion Flash, I actually ran in these this morning. That geometry, it's less aggressive. It just really, really works for my foot. So all in all, like, I'm really impressed with the innovation and the willingness not to just kind of stay status quo. I think sometimes brands just rest on their laurels once they find something, and as the market continues to innovate, they just keep on putting out the. That's not what Mizuno does. They've actually moved their headquarters from Japan to, I believe, Norway in order to be able to study elite athletes and get access to more of that innovation and see what's kind of coming out. And some of the things that have come out of that are the Neo Zen, right, are the Rebellion Pro 3. While this is maybe just a rant on Mizuno in general, I've been very, very impressed. And I really like this shoe. I think that it can find a place in a lot of people's rotations. It'll depend on your stride, but if you have a stride that happens to work with this, then I think you will really end up enjoying it. And it's a very fun, very bouncy shoe overall. So if you stuck this far, I sure appreciate you. If you haven't already, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment. Let me know what questions you have about the shoe or what I could have done better in this review to make it more informative for each and every one of you. And as always, I'll leave you with a question, which is, what are your impressions of the Wave Rebellion Pro 3? Have you tried it, or does the crazy geometry scare you off? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.